After 8 long years on the market, the Nintendo Switch has come and gone. Fresh off the heels of one of Nintendo's biggest failures, the Wii U, the Switch went on to be quite possibly the most successful console in the company's history. While not without its problems like the online, the Joy-Con drift, the low power compared to its competitors, and Nintendo's refusal to sell their games at an affordable price, the Switch still reigns supreme with its innovative hook and absolutely stacked library of games. So many of Nintendo's staple series got some of their biggest and best games to date, and a lot of their more niche or neglected series also finally got their chances in the spotlight. I was only really into Mario and Kirby when the system first launched, but now I'm a big fan of most of their staple IPs. And now that the age of the Switch is coming to a close with the Nintendo Switch 2, what a creative name, on the way, I decided to go through some of my favorite Switch games to rank them and see which one truly reigns supreme for me. In fact, there are so many games I want to talk about that I ended up making this list a top 15 instead of a top 10. Despite that, there is a chance that some of your favorite Switch games might not show up here. Not only do we have separate opinions, but I also haven't played every Switch game ever made. And I'm, of course, only sticking to games I have played, which means no Mario and Rabbids, no Astral Chain, and no Luigi's Mansion 3. That also means no Pokemon, but honestly, even if I did play them, I'd be more likely to put a PS5 game on this list. I'm also only sticking to first and second party games. Third party games and indie games, even ones like Celeste that are often associated with the Switch, will not show up. Last but not least, I'm primarily focusing on games that were conceived and developed for the Nintendo Switch. Ports, remasters, and remakes will generally be omitted. However, I still want to bring up a few of these as honorable mentions before we get to the main list. Super Mario 3D World is as fun as ever, even if the new run speed is a little fast for me, and Bowser's Fury is also a great open world expansion. I got to play Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, and Pikmin 3 through their ports, and they're both fantastic games. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe was an unexpected surprise, but a welcome one. It's easily how I'll be playing my favorite Kirby game going forward. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door was a near perfect remake of Mario's best RPG, and it gives me so much hope for the series' future. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition would honestly be number 1 if it weren't for the no re-releases rule. It is the best way to experience one of my top 3 favorite games of all time, but I can't explain why now because it doesn't count. And by far the most scathing omission is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I know it's the Switch's best-selling game and it has double the tracks the original had thanks to the booster course pass, but it's still a Wii U port at the end of the day. Sorry I can't sing this awesome game's praises again. With all those restrictions out of the way, it's as good a time as any to dive through this massive library one more time to find out which game can truly be called the peak of the Switch era.
Oh my god, Star Wars! Star Wars!
Fire Emblem Three Houses was many people's first Fire Emblem, myself included according to legal sources. This was an interesting spin on the series, spending the first half training your units in specific roles as tension builds in Fodlan, and spending the second half fighting a full-scale war with your comrades with a slightly different story depending on the route. There are so many ways to train up your army with how branching the class system is. You can focus purely on each unit's proficiencies, but you can also mold your army to how you see fit. Since any class can use almost any weapon type, there's more customization in this game than the series has ever seen before. The turn-based strategy remains as solid as ever, especially with the introduction of battalions whose abilities can really turn the battle in your favor. It also has one of the series' most fleshed out and well-developed casts, almost matching the likes of Yggdrasil and Tellius in that regard, even if the stories they're a part of could have felt a little more whole. This game clearly could have used a bit more time in the oven to make the story the best it could be. The freedom of customization also leads to a lot of imbalance in the gameplay. The monastery breaks can sometimes take up a bit too much time, and graphically the game doesn't look great. But even with its many flaws, Three Houses is by far my favorite post-Awakening Fire Emblem, and I'm glad it got more eyes on the series, for better or for worse.
Remember the snake block?
Super Mario Maker 2 rendered the original obsolete just for adding slopes. Okay, but seriously, this game is a really solid evolution of Mario Maker. The new stage elements, enemies, and power-ups open up way more possibilities for levels, especially the on-off blocks. Where would we be without them? The 4 new level themes are much needed additions, and Night Mode is an extra welcome bonus to spice up levels a bit more, even if some of its gimmicks get in the way and they cheaped out with some of the backgrounds. Seriously, the castle looks so cool with a starry background. Why'd you have to ruin it by giving the player water physics? And why did you just use basic stars for most NSMBU themes when some of the original themes had had dedicated night modes. You seriously made a new daytime snow theme for this game but didn't bother using the original nighttime version? Anyway, the 3D world game style was a welcome surprise. While not without its issues, like the lack of tracks and the semi-solid problems, it has a lot of unique elements of its own that leads to extra creative levels. It's the closest we've ever gotten to a proper 2.5D Mario game. I also love the addition of World Builder and how it basically encourages players to make their own Mario campaigns. If only it was in the game at launch. While I love what this game does, I just wish it had a little more. The lack of beach and volcano themes is so frustrating. We were 2 themes away from being good to go, and they didn't even bother adding them in an update. Speaking of which, it really sucks that this game's support dropped less than a year after launch, which is an annoying trend that plagued many games throughout the Switch era. It could have easily been supported for far longer, adding so many new features, but I guess they really had to jump over to Mario Wonder. Super Mario Maker 2 is still a great game, and an excellent level building tool. I just wish it took a few extra opportunities. Seriously, can Mario Maker 3, if it happens, please add the last 2 themes and give the night themes proper backgrounds and gimmick toggles? And add the penguin suit? Xenoblade Chronicles 2 doesn't exactly make the best first impression. The tone's a little all over the place throughout the first half due to a higher emphasis on comedy. The character designs are a bit much. The voice directing reeks of Sonic Adventure 1, and the tutorials straight up teach you how to play the game wrong. It's easily the weakest of the main Xenoblade trilogy for me, but with that said, it's still great. All Rest is a joy to explore, with varied, beautiful environments and plenty of secrets and side quests. The combat may take some getting used to, but once it clicks, it really clicks. Thinking quickly and stringing combos between all your blade types together to maximize damage is a ton of fun. The story and characters are also a highlight. While a little more cryptic in its presentation than 1, it's a very impactful story about nihilism and the importance of having hope in the face of great despair. The main party members are enjoyable characters, especially the GOAT Zeke von Genbu, and it also features some of the series' best villains with Torna and Amalthus. Not to mention, this game has probably the best soundtrack out of any game on this list. It's one I've gone back to listen to many times. If you can get past the learning curve and you'll find that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a very well-crafted RPG and a great sequel to one of Nintendo's best games. But with that said, can we please get an enhanced port for the Switch 2 that fixes the tutorials and field skills and maybe lets the characters move faster in combat?
You're a kid now! You're a squid now!
To be honest, I'm kind of on the fence about which of the Switch's 2 Splatoon games I should rank over the other. On an objective level, at least to me, Splatoon 3 is better as a game. It's more balanced, it has tighter controls, it has better quality of life for the most part, its single-player campaigns are way more consistent, and Salmon Run is actually fun. But there was something about Splatoon 2's unique urban edge that was largely absent from 3. The aesthetics, the lighting, the music, it was all so entrancing. It also had much better Splatfest, the series' best single-player campaign with the Octo expansion, and just felt more complete by the end of its lifespan than 3 did. I'm currently working on a video about my experience with the Splatoon series, so stay tuned for that if you want to know the full story. Back to the countdown, I think I'll talk about these 2 games in release order. Splatoon 2 was a solid Year 1 title for the Switch and evolution of the first game. Yeah, it's more of the same, but Splatoon just has a super strong foundation, so it's natural that they just do it again with some more stuff. The new main weapons are really fun, especially the dually class. It introduced Off the Hook, the best idol group, and overall had the series' best Splatfest. The maps are absolutely gorgeous, despite the quality of some of their gameplay. And of course, Octo expansion is a goddamn masterpiece, with its eerie, melancholic atmosphere coupled with its challenging yet rewarding gameplay and insane lore drops. However, the special weapons felt unbalanced, unsatisfying, or both. The base hero mode was a complete joke, the new modes Salmon Run and Clam Blitz both felt undercooked, and unless you were a comp player, the game just didn't give you a lot of reasons to stick with it if you've been playing for so long. Moving on to Splatoon 3, it's a massive step up in terms of quality of life, letting you skip the news and train while waiting for battle. The controls are super tight, and the new movement techs feel great. The special weapons are much better designed for the most part, and the game gives casual players many reasons to keep playing, unlike 2. It also has a great base hero mode, and while Side Order wasn't nearly as good as Octo expansion, it's still a really fun experiment. However, the map design quality took a nosedive this time. It took a whole year for us to get a single good new map. The netcode and matchmaking are a bust, the Splatfests were mostly mishandled, and there were long periods between the updates that gave us such little drops. Well, at least it gave us Splatanas. Honestly, these two game spots can probably be interchanged. I'd say 2 has a lot more sauce, which could just come down to my nostalgia, but 3 is the more fun game overall, hence why I'm ranking it higher. I mean, it is my most played game on the Switch for a reason. Maybe it was just addiction.
My favorite character in the series is now Ochi.
Pikmin 4, the bad ending continues. This game was in the works for a long time, and the end result was extra crispy. It's built around treasure hunting like Pikmin 2 was, only this time with massive, gorgeous areas, the largest and prettiest in the series. It brought back the caves from 2 and actually made them fun, with fairer obstacles and much more creative puzzles. The 7 old Pikmin types and the 2 new ones are all really useful, and Ochi's also a very helpful second captain / raft / battering ram. There are so many tools and upgrades you can get to help you traverse these vast, imaginative landscapes and find all the treasures and castaways. The Dondori battles and challenges are fun, the nighttime defense missions are really engaging, and the Madman Louie is even more of a terrorist than ever. To be fair, this game kind of has a lengthy tutorial, and even beyond that, it's an extremely easy game for the most part. It honestly makes 3 look like 2 in that regard. The auto lock is also annoying, and allowing only 3 Pikmin types in the field at a time is a little restrictive. Regardless, this is a W that Pikmin fans really needed. Pikmin 4 is a great strategy game, a great adventure game, a great collectathon. It's just a really great game overall, even despite its flaws.
Mouthful mode.
Kirby and the Forgotten Land was Kirby's first mainline game in full 3D. No idea why it took this long for Kirby to get a proper 3D game, but boy did it pay off. This is one of the smoothest transitions to 3D I've ever seen a series make, taking everything that worked in 2D and applying it to an extra axis beautifully. It's paired with the interesting setting of a destroyed civilization, which in of itself comes with a fun new gimmick of mouthful mode. The levels take full advantage of the new setting and Kirby's powers, both new and old, to produce a wide range of fun, memorable set pieces. The copy abilities, while disappointingly fewer in number this time, are tons of fun in 3D, especially since you can now upgrade them, giving them new powers. The combat absolutely soars with the abilities, especially regarding the bosses. The game honestly kinda feels like a hack and slash at times. The puzzles and other secrets are no slouch either, making great use of the copy abilities and mouthful modes. Topped off with one of the series' best soundtracks, this is everything I wanted to see in a jump to 3D for the Kirby series, and it didn't even rely heavily on nostalgia like, say, Star Allies. It knows full well what it wants to do on its own merits, and it's a delight for newcomers and longtime fans like myself.
All right, dear. I'll get the Triforce of Wisdom.
Finally, a Zelda game starring Zelda. The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom was the first proper new top-down Zelda since A Link Between Worlds 11 years prior. With Zelda herself taking charge this time, it was a good idea to shake up the gameplay so it actually felt like her game, rather than just giving her Link's usual toolkit. Instead, she has echoes, copies of objects and enemies you can conjure to cross gaps, solve puzzles, and fight. It's a great adaptation of the Wild Duology's philosophy into a top-down format, where anything you can find in your journey may prove useful, not just the shiniest trinkets you find in treasure chests. There are so many ways to use the echoes to overcome obstacles, and you're really encouraged to think outside the box a lot of the time. The new formula also really fits Zelda's reliance on wisdom, as opposed to Link, who's always made it through his trials with his courage. The overworld is a delight to explore between the new and familiar locations. The still world and dungeons really test your knowledge with all your echoes, and the story is also very enjoyable with some surprisingly deep lore implications. Even though I still like A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds a bit more, Echoes of Wisdom is still a clever, charming, wonderful game, and it makes me super excited for what the Zelda series may have in store for the coming generation.
I am Steve.
I mean, come on. Of course Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was gonna be here. Yeah, the online's a joke, World of Light was way too drawn out, there could have been more side modes, and yeah, they should not have added Byleth over, say, Bandana D. But with all that said, this game slaps. The controls and presentation are the best they've ever been in the series. The inputs feel tighter than ever, and every hit you land feels as impactful as it should. The stage lineup is the largest it's ever been, with so many highlights from so many series. On top of bringing back everyone who's ever been playable in Smash before, it also featured some great picks for newcomers, like Inkling, Daisy, Ridley, K. Rool, Joker, Bowser, Banjo, Steve, Sephiroth, and Sora. There are so many ways to customize matches by changing rules and turning stage hazards and items on and off. Couple that with Mii Fighters and Stage Builder coming back, as well as heaps of user-generated content you can download, you can basically forge the kinds of spectacular battles you want. Or if you like to keep things simple, you could just have fun duking it out with your friends. What else must I add? It's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Maybe the most polished game in the series yet, ignoring the online. Brawl may still hold the title of my favorite Smash game, but Ultimate is a close second. I can't wait to see how Sakurai may top it this coming generation, if he plans to. I know I said I was only allowing games that are fully Switch original, but I just had to make an exception for Breath of the Wild. I know it was developed for the Wii U first and foremost, but come on. It was the Switch's headlining launch title. Its more popular version by far is the Switch version. It got a spin-off and a sequel made for the Switch. It would just feel wrong to not include it. Anyway, what do I need to say at this point? It's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You already know why this game is so good. It's completely open world, as you can travel across the largest depiction of Hyrule yet in any direction you want, without any walls or load zones blocking your path. You can scale any mountain, go through any shrine, take on any challenge you want. The more you explore, the stronger and better equipped you'll get, and the better chance you have against the calamity. The somber soundtrack and presentation really adds to the atmosphere of your exploration of this ruined kingdom. I don't really know what else I need to add. Everyone has already said their piece about Breath of the Wild, including me in my Zelda ranking. See that if you want to see my thoughts on this game in greater detail. Just know that Breath of the Wild was a massive, influential success for good reason. After over a decade of New Super Mario Bros. U being the last proper 2D Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder came along as a huge breath of fresh air. I think I might be sensing a pattern. I was so excited for this game that I dragged my mom to my first ever midnight release just for the chance to play this game a little sooner, and it did not disappoint. This game is so damn charming, offering the most vibrant, colorful, expressive art style the franchise has seen in a long time. The level themes feel so much more unique than those from past 2D games, even if we've technically seen many of them before. And it helps that the levels themselves are very well designed, with each one having something new to offer. The wonder effects are a great way to spice up the levels, drastically altering the course or throwing you into a minigame for more goodies. The controls are easily the best out of any 2D Mario, with how swift and tight movement feels. The 3 new power-ups are all super fun to use, and the badges are also a helpful bonus that come with some great mini levels of their own. The talking flowers are hilarious. I am so happy Daisy is playable. I'm just so glad Nintendo is finally okay with Mario taking risks again. If it had just a few more secrets, and more than 2 bosses, this game would honestly be near perfect. As it stands though, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is, dare I say it, absolutely wonderful. It's easily a top 3 2D Mario for me, and we haven't even reached the best of the best yet.
The last Metroid has escaped. The galaxy is no longer at peace.
These next 4 games are ones I would consider to be 10 out of 10 worthy. The champions of the Switch, and some of my personal favorite games of all time. Starting with Metroid Dread. This game is everything the Metroid series needed, taking everything past 2D Metroids did well and polishing it all to near perfection. This game controls like an absolute dream. The movement is so tight, and the directional aiming feels amazing. Samus's abilities all feel great to use, be they old or new, and all the tools you have to attack and evade enemies makes this game's combat some of the best the series has ever seen. You're gonna need to get the hang of it too, since this game pulls no punches with its difficulty. In an era where so many games, including a few on this list, are made easier solely for mass appeal, it's so refreshing to get a game that doesn't hold back and forces the player to lock in. And outside maybe a few Emmy encounters, it never feels cheap. It feels encouraging encouraging and satisfying to finally make it past certain obstacles or boss fights after so much trial and error. ZDR is a great setting, full of well-designed regions, each made up of more standard areas and some tense corridors with the Emmy that test your stealth. The boss lineup is incredible, with each one having unique attack patterns that really test your patience. You will die to each boss at least a few times, but with each death, you'll know when to dodge and when to strike. Learning each boss's attack pattern with each attempt and finishing them off in the most cinematic ways is insanely satisfying. Seriously, I died more times to the final boss than I care to admit, but finally managing to beat him and escape the planet was my greatest experience with this series to date. Aside from some Emmy encounters being frustrating and the music, while not bad, not being the most memorable in the series either, I have pretty much no problems with Metroid Dread. Simply a near perfect return to form for this series, and I'm so pumped to see how Prime 4 lives up to its grandeur. Yeah, I know, I probably should have waited for that game to come out before making this list, but let's face it, it's going to be a launch title for Switch 2 as well, just like Breath of the Wild was for the original Switch. I can easily talk about it alongside its Switch 2 exclusive brethren, and more importantly, when I rank all the Metroid games, hopefully later this year.
Our last line of defense will be Link.
The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was an even bigger, better Breath of the Wild, tripling the world size, revamping the mechanics, and adding so much extra stuff to make this the biggest Zelda game yet. While the Sky Islands could have been a bit more fleshed out and the story felt a little fractured at points, this game does so many other things right that I can easily look past its shortcomings. Link's new abilities, mainly Fuse and Ultra Hand, give you so much freedom to experiment with playstyles. Fuse lets you attach items to your weapons and shield, increasing damage or adding some sort of effect. Ultra Hand lets you combine various items, including the new Zonai devices, together to form contraptions to help you get around or solve some other problem. These new abilities open up so many possibilities where anything you come across may prove useful, and there's no wrong way to solve a problem or defeat an enemy. There are so many fun ways to get around, the main and side quests are more fleshed out, the bosses are a big improvement over Breath of the Wild, and overall, this is easily some of the most fun I've had with any Zelda game. Just like with Breath of the Wild, I think I already said everything I need to in my Zelda rankings, so watch that if you want more details. As it stands, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a phenomenal game, and I can't wait for everyone to suddenly agree with me in 5 years. I guess some things never change. We finally made it to the first game I got for my Switch. The System Seller. The biggest holiday title. The best 3D Mario game. And one of, if not the best 3D platformer of the modern era. And maybe of all time. Super Mario Odyssey is just everything one would want in a Mario game. It has borderline perfect controls and movement. It has sprawling, imaginative areas full of moons and other goodies to find. It has countless mini levels and mini games hidden within the levels that are tons of fun to go through for their rewards. It has some of Mario's most inventive powers with the capture system, leading to some of the most creative designs and solutions. It has a massive post-game, making you search every nook and cranny to check off every last Power Moon. It's chock full of throwbacks to the series past, making you appreciate just how far Mario's come, while also making you eager for what's next. It even has a bunch of costumes you can dress Mario up in for the heck of it. This game has it all. I'm struggling to believe this game's hype cycle was 8 years ago, because the insane build-up and release still feels like yesterday. I could go on and on about how incredible Super Mario Odyssey is. For not just returning to, but evolving the collectathon style of 64, for reminding everyone why Nintendo is as revered as they are after an age of stagnation, for sowing the seeds of the Mario Renaissance we're currently in, and in general, just for being an insanely well-designed, fun game. That's the key word here. Fun. Not photorealistic Game Award bait, not greedy live service slot made to steal your money, just pure, unadulterated fun. It's why I love games like Terraria, Doom Eternal, and more recently Astrobot as much as I do, as all those games are built more around fun than anything else, just like Super Mario Odyssey. This game was an instant classic the moment it first released, and it remains so over 7 years later. After some fighting between this, Breath of the Wild, and Smash Ultimate, I was pretty set on Odyssey holding the spot of my favorite Switch game for the longest time. However, against all odds, nearly 5 years after its release, it was dethroned. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a beautiful culmination of everything Tetsuya Takahashi and Monolith Soft have worked towards. It's honestly kind of an anomaly how good this game is, with how much it had to live up to and how well Monolith Soft had to play their cards with such a bold premise. And being the wizards they are, they went all out to deliver the perfect end to this overarching saga. It tells one of the most ambitious stories out of any Nintendo game, quite literally bringing together the worlds of 1 and 2 and trapping them in an endless war, while still managing to stay focused on its key characters and concepts. Even just at face value, it's a moving story about rebellion and the fears of moving forward, doubling as a thoughtful commentary on our society if you read between the lines. The 6 main characters have amazing chemistry and growth, with Noah and Mio being by far the series' best romance. There are so many side characters and side quests spread throughout the game, and I ended up missing a lot of them on my first playthrough. Ionios is vast, with so many of the series' trademark massive regions, and you'll likely miss at least a few areas if you only focus on the main objectives. I often found myself going off the beaten path to do another side quest or fight another enemy. The combat is far and away the best in the series. Not only can you finally switch between party members mid-battle, but the job system opens the doors for so many different loadouts. Mixing and matching different classes and even combining arts leads to so much experimentation, and I was kept on the edge of my seat the whole time. It's an impeccable merging of concepts from 1 and 2. Just like with the world, the storytelling, the themes, the soundtrack, I could go on. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is incredible as a standalone RPG and as an evolution and celebration of its series. Thanks to its bold, emotional story, its charming characters, its sprawling world, its thrilling combat, its music that clears Norse God of War, and its ending, which honestly might be the best ending I've ever seen in a video game. I could go on for hours about how much this game and this series means to me. And soon enough, I will. Once I finally figure out how to play Xenogears, I think it might be a good time to dive through the series and explain what makes it so special. Well, there you have it. Those were, to me, the highlights of the Switch era. It'll be hard to move on to this new era, unless the new Joy-Cons don't drift, but even as great as the Switch 2 could be, I'll always look back upon the original Switch with fondness. While it sure had its problems, it was a monumental success that got so many more people into video gaming, and I'll always love it for introducing countless new games to people. Despite that, not everything lasts forever, and all we can do is just walk on.